was, and he was going to take off and won't find him or her again. That's the last statement he told me is, none of it is going to matter tomorrow, and then he stormed out of my office. So this is what I was thinking. This is why I was panicking and being nervous about him not going to St. Paul. When he got to St. Paul and the officer called me and said he's here, then I felt like everything was okay. Like I felt, thank God, he's there. Everything's fine. They're going to Baker Act him.
Thank you. That's all I have.
Morning, Ms. Orth.
Good morning.
So when John came into your office on August 22nd, you did not observe any mental health issues with him at all, correct?
Correct.
There were no red flags.
No.
You had a normal conversation with him, right?
Correct.
Just like we're having now.
Yes.
He paid his $100 consultation fee.
He did.
And he was interested in getting paternity for Phoebe, right?
Correct. He wanted to establish his parental rights.
Okay. And what did he tell you in regards to wanting to establish those rights?
He told me that he had Phoebe for a couple of years now, but he didn't have anything, he didn't have any court order or anything really justifying him having Phoebe.
Okay.
He was aware of that. He was aware of the fact that he had her, and then if mom was going to come back and demand for her, that he had to turn her over to mom because he didn't have a court order establishing him as a father.
Was he worried about that?
He was worried about that. That's the reason it's consultation.
Okay. And it's fair to say he was extremely worried that that was a very real possibility, right?
Yes, correct. I informed him I informed him of that during the consultation, and it was his concern. But I confirmed it with him. If she comes and calls law enforcement, she's gonna have to go back with mom. You do not have a court order.
Right. And so you told him that.
I told him that.
So at that point, he knows, because he's just met with a legal expert on the issue, that if mom, Michelle Kerr, comes and asks for Phoebe.
So what he knows, I think she testifies what she said to him.
Could approach on that, Judge?
Just proceed.
Okay. Can I rephrase the question?
Yes.
So you told him that if mom, Michelle Kerr, comes and asks for Phoebe, he has to give Phoebe back to mother.
Yes,
And did he seem to understand that when you explained it to him?
he did. He had a general understanding already that would happen. He wanted to confirm that that was what would happen.
Okay. And was he even more concerned after you made that aware to him?
Yes, he was eager to move forward at that time too. I think money was the issue.
And you quoted him $2,500
Correct.
for your retainer, right?
Correct.
And you offered him a payment plan.
Yeah, I was trying to help him out. So I felt good enough with our consultation that I said, listen, I could help you out with a payment plan, but I need, X amount of money down and then the filing fee, and then we'll establish a payment plan, and then we'll move forward.
And he said he would get the money and come back, right?
Yes.
And you didn't hear from him again until New Year's Eve when you were in Montreal, correct?
Well, he responded back to my email initially. When I emailed him and said, thank you for coming in, then he responded to that and said that, he was, we had a good consultation, that he was pleased with the way I was, passionate about what I did, and that he would gather the money and then come back as soon as he can.
Okay. And that's what he said in the email.
That's what he did, generally. Yeah.
And no issues at all or concerns with him at that point based on that email, correct?
Not at all.
No?
Not at all, no.
But the next time you see him, or let me rephrase that, the next time you hear from him is December 31st, right?
Correct, 2014.
And that's when he calls your office?
He calls the office after hours, either after hours, but it was closed, so the 31st.
Okay.
The answering service was on.
And he was anxious to get this paternity case going on December 31st.
He wanted
right?
to do it now, yeah.
Okay, he wanted it now. Is that unusual in your business for customers to come in and be anxious and eager about getting their paternity cases?
No, everybody thinks that their situation is an emergency. So it's not unusual that people want to move forward immediately and not always considerate of whether it's a night, weekend, holiday, because to them it's an emergency. You're dealing with their children, their family, their finances. So, they want to move as fast as possible. So it's not unusual, but it was 31st. towards the end of the day. Because I remember I was getting ready to go to a New Year's Eve party in my family. So it was towards, probably around dinner time or a little after that. So it was late in the day on the 31st. So most people don't expect that I'm going to start drafting paperwork at that time.
And it was kind of inconsiderate too, wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, but he wasn't rude in his email. He understood.
Now, he sent an email to you that afternoon in addition to the phone call, right?
He did. He called the answering service first, and then he emailed right away after that.
Okay, and in the email, he basically said he wanted to give you a call, and he's ready to retain you, and he would like to meet with you, right?
Yes.
Nothing in that email that was concerning or alarming to you?
No.
Okay. And then that's when you write back, and you set up the appointment for January 6th.
Yes, correct.
And when you met with him on January 6th, you said you met around 10 a.m., right?
Correct.
And what was his concern when you met with him on the 6th?
He just wanted to file as soon as possible.
Okay.
He was afraid that Michelle was going to come back. Michelle, meaning Phoebe's mom, was going to come back and take Phoebe away from him. He had a dinner over the Christmas break. He mentioned that he met her and her fiance or boyfriend at the time at their house and had dinner. And then as a result of that, it didn't go well. He was afraid for Phoebe's safety. He didn't want Phoebe to go live with Michelle and her new boyfriend. He was very concerned about the boyfriend, the fiance. He said that he had a long rap sheet, a lot of violent, that's his word, a lot of violent crime. And I don't know that, I didn't look it up yet at that point. But he's saying he has a long criminal history, and that he saw weapons at the house, and that Guy Kisser told him things that made him really, really concerned about Phoebe's safety if she would live there. So he needed to move fast. He was hiding Phoebe at that point too. She wasn't going to school. She hadn't gone to school a couple of days, he said, 2 or 3 days, because he was afraid that Michelle would come to the school and take her, because he knew that she could. So he hadn't sent her to school in a couple of days.
And the name of Michelle's boyfriend was Guy Kisser.
Guy Kisser, yeah.
Right, and he didn't like Guy Kisser.
He did not, no.
Okay. And the mother, just for the record's sake, is Michelle Kerr.
Yes.
And he articulated that to you.
Yeah, he did.
And on January 6th, when you all were talking about this, he was completely coherent.
Completely coherent. His concern with Michelle Kerr was that she was unstable. That's what he was telling me. She's unstable. She hasn't been involved. I haven't asked for her in a while. She had, I guess, some issues and a history of either substance abuse issue of some sort. So that was his concern with her. And then he was concerned about Guy Kisser about a different reason, about his criminal history.
And when he's speaking with you on the 6th, there were no red flags, right?
No.
No mental health concerns?
No, not at all. The one thing that stick out in my mind all the time after that meeting is that I couldn't believe how much he knew about where he lived and the details. Nobody knows that usually. They don't go off. Nobody gives me 7 or 8 addresses or 5 or 6, however many it was, with exactly time period, months, years, zip code, address, who lived there. That stuck out in my mind. I was like, wow, he really knows his things. And he had an answer for every question I had. He knew.
How did you gauge his intelligence level?
I mean, I didn't think he was, I would think he was, I won't say above average, I would think he was normal. I mean, there was nothing that, I just thought I was impressed with his ability to remember things.
And you did the template that you would have filed in the paternity case.
Yeah, so I had prepared, a little bit before he came to the office, I had kind of just prepared the normal petition, and then I was just going to fill in with him the reason why he wanted, sole parental responsibility, or, I needed those details, which I didn't know at the time. So that's what we met for. We met for so we could finish the petition the way he wanted it to be.
Okay, and he provided you all those details?
All the details.
Some of the many things we've already talked about, right?
Yes, and then we looked up Guy Kisser's criminal history on my computer, who pulled all this up. I worded things the way it needs to be worded. And he was cooperative, no red flag whatsoever.
Okay. And as an attorney, is it important that before a client signs a contract, you make sure that that client is coherent, competent to sign the contract?
Yes.
All right. And did he sign that? I'm referring to it as a contract, but the template that would have been filed in court for the paternity act.
He signed the retainer agreement, which is my contract with him, right? That established a relationship as an attorney-client. So he signed that contract, and he signed the petition that I had drafted, and the uniform, the UCCJEA, which is the form that needs. UCCJEA, which is just an abbreviation for a long form that needs to be filed with about the addresses and all that stuff. I think he's signed his notice of social security number too with it. So everything was signed. I had no concern for his capability of competency to sign the agreement.
And how was his demeanor after everything was signed?
He was happy. He was eager. He was like, let's get the ball moving. You know, he was just wanting to move forward as quickly as possible. He was pleasant the whole meeting. I mean, he was.
And did he tell you he was working as a cook at the time?
He did. He mentioned that. We talked about it. He mentioned that he was just starting a new job. He mentioned to me that, you know, it was a Jamaican restaurant or some sort of like that. But we talked about his job. And he just started. He seemed to like it, but it was only a day or two into it. It was like very early in.
And fast forwarding to the next day, January 7th, at the end of your encounter with him, he said to you that none of this would matter anymore as he left, correct?
Correct.
All right. Does paternity always matter?
Always.
Why is that?
Because it doesn't, because if you want to establish your rights, it always matter. You need to, if he wants to have a time-sharing schedule, if he wants to have, you know, some sort of either shared parental responsibility or sole parental responsibility, you need to get established. In Florida, fathers don't have any legal right until they go establish their rights if they have a baby out of wedlock. That's the way the law is here. So paternity always matters in Florida as far as getting it established if you're not going to be living or in a relationship with the mother. So that made no sense. That statement made no sense whatsoever.
So you were concerned at that point?
Yes, because his whole reason to come see me, it was to establish his right and for his fear that Michelle Kerr would come back and get Phoebe, which is why he didn't send her to school. So why, after a meeting, it didn't matter anymore made no sense whatsoever.
Now, later on that night, he sent a couple more emails to you, correct?
He did. Sent me 2 emails.
Right. Now, the first one would have been around 8:30 p.m.
Correct.
What did he send to you?
Essentially, it was like, my mother's going to, either his mom or stepmom. I don't know which one he said in the email.
Would it help if I showed you a copy?
It would, because I haven't
Coach
looked at it.
John?
Yes.
Okay. So it was his mother. He said that his mother would come to the office before we closed, which it was 8:30 when he sent that. So clearly we were closed by that time. But he's just saying that his mother's going to come and drop off the last hundreds of dollars. So he's referring to the filing fee before we close, and that he's part of St. Paul now, referring to St. Paul Catholic Church.
After he says in his email, my mom will drop the $100 off before you close.
He says LOL, ha ha ha.
Right, like if that's a joke.
Like a joke, yeah. My mom will drop off the last $100, LOL, ha ha ha.
My mom will drop off.
My mom will drop off the last hundreds of dollars before you close, LOL, ha ha ha. And then he goes on and say that he's part of St. Paul now.
And he also sent another email that night at 10:25, right?
Yes, at 10.
Did you see a copy of that?
I do. Yes, in that email, he's telling me that he will be there the next morning to give me the last hundreds of dollars, and that he will be there at 9:30. And that was at roughly 10:25, 10:30 at night.
Mom, we got it. Go ahead.
Redirect.
I wanted to ask you something. The prosecutor mentioned that, or was asking you some questions, and you said that the last thing he said, that statement made no sense whatsoever. And what statement was it that made no sense whatsoever?
That his paperwork, the filing of his paperwork, won't matter anymore tomorrow.
Okay. And that statement was made on January 7th, right?
Correct.
Okay. And now, that wasn't the first statement he made that day that made no sense whatsoever, right?
No, I mean, the whole meeting,
Right.
yeah.
From the start of St. Genevieve to the, if you're not God, then I'm God. None of that stuff made any sense, right?
No.
Judge, we just have an exhibit marked. I'll let the record reflect I received Defense Exhibit 8, Composite 8A through C for identification.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Ms. Torres, I'm showing you some paperwork here. I'd ask you to take a look at it without showing it to the jury. It's Defense Exhibit 8, Composite A through D for identification. Do you recognize that paperwork?
Yes.
And is it a fair and accurate representation of the emails from your law firm to Mr. Jonchuck and his responses to your law firm?
Yes.
So at this time, the defense would move Defense Exhibit 8 into evidence as the composite A through D.
Any objection?
There you go.
Received.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The exhibit that I just showed you, that is a complete record of the emails back and forth between you and Mr. Jonchuck, right?
Yes, correct. Starting on August 22nd, 2014, which I guess I was correct in my date.
We're right on the date. When you called 911 on that day, you thought that Mr. Jonchuck was going to be Baker acted?
I did.
Nothing further, Judge.
Anything further?
Yes, one question, Your Honor.
Sure.
Ms. Torres.
If Phoebe's deceased, paternity doesn't matter then, does it?
It doesn't.
Objection, Judge. Irrelevant, argumentative, calls for sympathy in front of the jury.
Overruled.
May I follow up, Judge?
Sure.
Ms. Torres, if you are God, you don't need the courts to determine paternity, do you?
Objection.
Sustained.
Nothing further, Judge.
Can Ms. Torres be excused or should she be on standby?
Stand by and maybe approach real quick?
Sure. Can she leave?
If we can hold on 1 second. I mean, she could leave the courtroom, just not run off to shit.
Okay. So,
Sure.
and is it Steve? Well, hold on, I can tell you. 25, and Ms. Torres, the lawyers will talk to you out in the vestibule there about what's next, okay?
Okay.
Don't run off.
I won't.
You would.
May I go?
Huh?
May I go?
Sure.
Jury's out of the hearing in the court, Your Honor.